firstly, I think it was a very useful side event that was held. What really struck me was the human rights element and the values. I think one of the gentlemen raised that comment when he spoke, and it made me realize how that is important in South Africa, making sure that the strategies and ideas that we come up with actually work at community level. So we work with marginalized communities, and if you don't have the values and it's not connected and there's partnership, ideas don't usually work. So that needs to be central. And of course the human rights element. We can't, you think food security, you think being able to live and continue living, so the human rights element is really important there.
So how does the change, the progression of the climatical catastrophes concern you in your country? Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, well, rural communities. So our organization focuses on rural communities, and we know that rural communities are the most affected by climate change. In one of the areas that we're working in, 80 people recently died in a flood. And those kind of extreme weather events we weren't seeing 20, 30 years ago. Now we're seeing them almost annually. We're seeing people dying, massive flooding events, but then also droughts that take 7, 8, 10 years before people see rainfall. And this is affecting the poorest people in our communities in South Africa. And we really do need to be focusing on how do we resource, equip, support, and make sure that people are not starving. People should not be starving in a world where there is food.
The disasters are already there. The one where 80 people died, it's this year, but last year we were dealing with something similar in a different province, and it just keeps getting worse. When you talk rural and marginalized communities, you can't really be talking mitigation. That's where the resilience needs to be built. How do then these communities, how are they resilient during the disasters that happen? How do they continue living and ensuring that there is food on their tables in a sustainable way, and that they are resilient to outlive or live longer with the concerns and the climate change that's already happening. Yeah.
And mostly people are left alone with their tragedies where they're lost. Mostly, how do you perceive it and how do you experience it in your country?
So we know that the president is very deeply concerned about what's happened in the area where there's been a flood. We also see that the infrastructure is not equipped to deal with the climate crises. So building resilience really means doing things differently, looking at our climate crisis and how do we live in a more resilient way. Crops get washed away in floods, seed banks get washed away in floods, good soil gets washed away in floods. So we're losing a lot more than, it will have a long-term effect on livelihoods in those areas.
What do you think, what can be done to motivate the majority to face the reality of this huge challenge that the whole humanity is actually facing?
So I think the partnership conversation comes back to me. We can't do this work in silos. We can't think that civil society needs to continue doing whatever they're doing without the government. There needs to be some synergy where we come together and we're like, what is the solution that works? And also bringing the people from the ground. We can't have these conversations and leave out the people who are most impacted, because that's where the practical solutions come from and will directly impact them again. So I think that's where we should be focusing on.
I think when marginalized people are affected, people with wealth and resources don't think about how this could affect them. But this is coming. Climate change is going to affect the rich as well. And that the point needs to be made that what people are feeling in marginalized communities now is coming. And I think that story needs to be told.